Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss Gate Mechanical 2022 portion phase diagram. In this video, we will discuss what exactly a phase diagram is, and we will discuss one phase diagram. Usually, the phase diagrams or equilibrium diagrams are very important because you will get one or two questions in gate examination. Okay, so we will directly move on to the topic. Phase diagrams. Phase diagrams, or they are also called equilibrium diagrams. Okay, equilibrium diagrams. Phase diagrams or equilibrium diagrams. So if a question comes like phase diagram or equilibrium diagram, either of them is correct. Okay. So phase diagrams, basically phase diagrams or equilibrium diagrams are diagrams which represents the relationship between, that is the relationship between phases, relationship between phases. I will explain that. Relationship between phases in a system as a function of function of first one, either temperature or pressure, third one, or composition. So actually phase diagram or equilibrium diagram is a diagram. It is actually a diagram. So what that diagram represents, it basically represents the relationship between phases as a function of temperature, pressure and composition. So we will see what exactly a phase, what is meant by a phase, because the relationship, relationship is actually the mutual agreement, right? So relationship between phases, what is exactly a phase? All of we know that phase is something like, gas is a phase, liquid is a phase, solid is a phase, right? So why gas is called a phase? Because in gas, it is having a particular arrangement, right? The molecules are having a particular arrangement. So the arrangement is uniform, or the composition is uniform. That is why gas is called a phase. Similarly, liquid, the composition is uniform. And similarly, solid, the composition is uniform. That is why gas, liquid and solid are called phases. Similarly, in materials, and preferably in this particular phase diagram portions, you will deal with solid phases only. You need to study only solid phases. Okay, so in solid you will see different phases. How? For example, if I am just mixing sugar and water, they are not separately identifiable, right? So when sugar is mixed with water, it will form a solution. That is a single phase. The same case is with when I mix sugar, when I mix water and salt. But if I'm just pouring some uh, oil in water, we can separately see a layer of oil and water. So they are actually separate, right? So in that case, they are called separate phases. So phase in a solid itself, we can see separate phases. It depends upon the composition. It will be more clear when we will draw a phase diagram and explain. Okay, so basically phase diagram is a relationship between phase as a function of temperature, pressure and composition. So we will see what exactly a phase is. Yeah, just 1 minute. So first, usually the questions in gate examinations are asked from binary phase diagrams or ternary phase diagrams. Usually ternary phase diagrams are, since they are actually quite complex, usually questions comes from binary phase diagrams. Binary. Binary phase diagrams. Binary phase diagrams. So binary phase diagrams, it is actually, binary means 2. So this particular phase diagram represents the relationship between the phases as a function of 2 variables. In the previous slide, we have discussed the variables are temperature, pressure and composition, right? So in binary phase diagrams, the 2 variables what we are actually selecting is, one is temperature, second one is composition. So temperature and composition are selected, and temperature is taken along y-axis and composition is taken along x-axis. That is, in temperature is taken in y-axis and composition is taken in x-axis. Okay, here you can take temperature in degrees Celsius or Kelvin. Composition can be in percentages. That is, usually the composition unit is, I will write here, weight percentage. I will explain what is exactly a weight percentage. It can be weight percentage or atomic percentage. But binary phase diagram is actually a plot of temperature versus composition. Here we are actually neglecting pressure. Otherwise, we are taking pressure as a constant, that is atmospheric pressure. So binary phase diagram depicts the relationship between the phases in a system as a function of temperature and composition. Pressure is fixed. So we have drawn a graph, temperature and composition. And usually what happens, we need to close this particular graph and it will become a rectangular box. We need to close the graph. This is called temperature composition map. And here I am telling you that it's binary. Binary means it's basically taking 2 components. Just like temperature and composition, we need to select 2 components. That is, if I'm just taking a pure iron, for example, pure iron, it is having 100% iron. But if I am just taking steel, for example, pure iron is having 100% iron. That is only one component system. But if I am just taking steel I cannot take 100% steel because steel is not a component. In steel, there is iron and carbon mainly. Other elements are there, but uh, uh, for the time, we will take iron and carbon. So steel consists of two components. So binary phase diagrams are basically for two component system, mainly the alloys which are composed of two components. Here we can take steel, iron and carbon. They are binary phase diagram. So similarly, we can take copper, nickel. They are also two component system. Okay, so these are called binary phase diagrams. So in binary phase diagrams, you need to study some phase diagrams. For example, you need to study copper nickel phase diagram. You need to study copper nickel. Questions can be expected from copper nickel phase diagram. Copper nickel phase diagram, first one. Then second one is lead tin phase diagram. Then iron carbon phase diagrams. So in GATE, you can expect questions from either any one of these phase diagrams. So it's very important you need to know each one of the phase diagram. Okay, so we will see how we will draw a binary phase diagram. Suppose we have a two component system which consists of, as I said earlier, two component system mainly composed of two elements, just like copper and nickel. Right now I will take two elements. One element is named A, the other element is named B. Okay, so I will take A here and B here. The meaning is that here element A will be 100%. Here element B will be 100%. Okay, that means as we move along this particular x-axis, composition of A decreases and composition of B increases. That is the meaning. That is, here A is 100%, here B is 100%. So in two component system, usually the total 100% is contributed by A and B. Here at this particular end, it is pure A, here it is pure B. But if I am just taking exactly the middle point, here what will be the composition? 50% A and 50% B. Similarly, if I am taking this particular portion, maybe like if I can mark it is 75% B and 25% A. Similarly here it will be 75% A and 25% B. Likewise, we will take the composition. So in binary phase diagram, the important point you need to note is that as we move along x-axis from left to right, the composition or the composition of one component decreases and the other increases. And binary phase diagrams are drawn for two component system. That is, when the particular alloy is made up of two components. Okay, so then how we will draw a binary phase diagram? That is the next we are actually going to see how we will draw a binary phase diagram. Okay, yes. So now we will consider a two component system. Instead of A, we will directly take an element. Okay, let the temperature be like that, and we will complete this particular graph and composition. Okay, composition in weight percentage. Then right now I am taking copper nickel system. Copper nickel. Okay, copper nickel phase diagram. That is, instead of A and B, I am just taking copper nickel. Copper nickel phase diagram. Okay, so first we need to mark this end as copper and this end as nickel. That means here 100% copper, here 100% nickel. And the second thing you need to know, the melting point of copper. Melting point of copper is 1083, 1083 degrees Celsius. Similarly, melting point of nickel. Nickel is 1455 degrees Celsius. So for to draw any phase diagram, binary phase diagrams or ternary phase diagram, we need to know the melting point of pure elements. That is here copper nickel. So definitely you need to by heart the melting point of copper and melting point of nickel. Then the shape of the binary phase diagram for copper nickel is, here you need to draw a hyperbolic curve connecting the melting points. Okay, I will explain what this particular curve. Here you can see when it was pure copper, it melts at 1083. But when I move along this line, see, that is copper decreases. Here the copper is 100%. So at this particular point, copper will be having a particular value. It's not 100%, right? So along with copper, there is small amount of nickel. So as we move along this curve, we can see as the content of nickel increases, melting point of alloy, because after this particular point, this particular system no longer remains as pure copper. It is a combination of copper nickel, so it becomes an alloy. So as we move along this particular curve, melting point of the alloy increases and it reaches up to here, and finally when the particular alloy comprises fully of nickel, it is pure nickel and 1455. Similarly, in the lower curve you can see as we keep on adding copper to nickel, melting point decreases, and finally when it reaches pure copper, it comes to 1083. So along this curve, upper and lower curve, the meaning is that each and every point it is an alloy. That is why the melting point is higher and here it is lower. So this particular curve, the top curve, is for melting. Then lower curve is for solidification. That is, solidification is we need to convert from the molten melt to solid. To get a particular alloy, we need to convert that particular system from molten liquid to solid, right? That is solidification. So above this particular line or the hyperbolic curve, the entire system remains as liquid. And below this curve, the entire system remains as solid. And putting a sign for solid, that is alpha. So in this portion it will be liquid plus alpha. So copper nickel phase diagram is as simple as that. That is, above this particular curve it is liquid, below this particular curve it is purely solid, and it is denoted by alpha. And this line, that is this line which separate liquid plus alpha and liquid, is called liquidus line. Liquidus. Similarly, this line which separates liquid plus alpha, that is liquid plus solid and solid, is called solidus line. So it's very important, liquidus and solidus. So I will make a quick revision. Copper nickel phase diagram is a binary phase diagram. In order to draw the phase diagram, you need to know the melting point of copper and nickel. Copper is 1083 and nickel is 1455, and they are connected by a hyperbolic curve, and the upper curve is for the melting of the two alloys, and the lower curve shows the solidification. Okay. So this is about copper nickel phase diagram, and in the next video we will do a problem on phase diagram, how to calculate the composition of the phases when a particular composition is given. And after that we will in the later sessions we will draw, and we will try to learn iron carbon phase diagrams and how the composition of each phase can be computed. Okay, thank you.